Hey, Lake Wales, good afternoon. Welcome to the Three Little Ladies. This is our ninth edition, and we're talking to you on the afternoon of April 24th. So it's a Wednesday, April 24th. Hey, Charlene and Juanita.
It's hard to believe that we're up to 9 sessions already of this. And in this one, of course, immediately follows last night's Planning and Zoning Board meeting.
Yeah. I
That
was so excited at that meeting because, last night we had, it was put to the board to vote on some incentives, changing the impact. Oh, I'm not saying this right. Changing an ordinance that involved the impact fees for developers. And we actually saw Bud Colburn, Roy Wilkinson, and then eventually Eric Rio ask some really good questions about how changing these impact fees or even allowing them or reducing them or increasing them would impact our city services in the future. And I just never heard them ask that many questions. And what I really liked was the fact that they decided to vote no because they didn't feel they had enough information. And that was very, very exciting to tell you the truth. How'd you feel?
It was the most, I guess, serious questioning that I've heard. I mean,
Yes. And when she was listening to people, the questions, McKibben also asked some good questions at one point. He eventually voted in favor, but he did ask some good questions at one point.
Yeah. And, I went up and spoke to, is it Buford? I think, or is it Buford? Beaufort?
Coburn, I think.
Yeah, his first name is Beaufort, but they call him Bud.
Bud, okay. Yeah. Bud Coburn, yeah. I went up and talked to him and thanked him for his questioning. And, he made the comment that even though that we were on the opposite side of the political spectrum, that he really appreciated what the three of us do. And that he thought that we added a lot to the city in, the questions that we, raise and the questions that we ask. And I don't know, I said something and he said, well, y'all have a pretty thick skin. I think you can handle some of this, and I said to him, I appreciate, when people ask intelligent questions, and I don't think that I have the whole answer to, what's going on in our city. I don't,
I felt encouraged that I was able to sit there and listen to them and find myself going, yeah. In my head, instead of, no.
So. They're providing some good leadership in the Planning and Zoning Board on behalf of citizens. And I respect that, and I'm grateful for it.
Me too.
And then they went on to actually vote against it. They followed their conscience in their voting, which was really, because sometimes, you hear them here in these different boards, a lot of some questions, but then they all fall in line and just all vote yes, and they didn't do that time. And it was very encouraging.
Yeah, I think that, I forget who I was talking to about their city commission. It was another city. And they said, it used to be that we would get all these split votes, 4-3, 5-2. And they go, now they all just vote together. And, that's not what you want to see when people are running cities and when there are, there are serious issues at stake. And the issue, they were discussing several things last night at the Planning and Zoning Board, which were important. One of them was the impact fee forgiveness for large companies, and which one of them could be the large pipe plant that's going in out over there off of 11th Street.
Yes, because it's for companies, the biggest forgiveness for impact fees is for job creation. And that it has to be like 215% of the average job or salary in that area. And I don't know if ADS qualifies for that or not, but they might.
I'm wondering, wouldn't they already have received the negotiations for those impact fees already, since they are, no? When does that happen?
Well, that's what they were talking about last night, that the ordinance allows James Slayton as city manager to be the final decision, or the only decision on whether they get these impact fee credits. And they said that they're actually granted at the time, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Charlene, at permitting, which is the last stage of the entire,
Yes,
process.
That's what they said. And it also has to be initiated by the developer. There's a application process. So it doesn't happen unless the developer submits the application, and apparently it's at the time of permitting.
So this ADS plan, they have permission to build, but they haven't pulled permits yet? Is that how it goes?
Well, I think that takes a while there, for the process to play out.
Yeah. We don't know what's happening with that, I don't think.
We don't know at what point, because there's a certain point where it almost goes dark. Once they have that major site plan, then the rest of it's pretty much dealt with by staff.
Yeah, and it does seem very dark, that it's gone dark, because we haven't heard enough word about it, have we?
No. And so, if this passes, theoretically, they could see millions of dollars in, impact fee credits. They said that the ADS said they didn't want them, that they didn't need them, but I would not be surprised for them to change their tune on that.
Yeah.
When they find out how much money they would save by having those credits.
Yeah. ADS was really good about saying all the right things to impress us.
Right. And then the second part of the ordinance was actually dealt with what they call traditional neighborhood designs. And, it's interesting, since we passed this Lake Wales Envisioned, they've come up with this thing called TND, traditional neighborhood designed homes. And their main criteria seems to be that they're backloaded or rear loaded, as they're calling it, off of an alley, and, they don't seem to grasp that traditional neighborhoods, it's a little more complex than just where you pull your car in, to park your car. So they actually waived a component of a planned development project last night, where they were trying to do some rear loaded, I don't know if they were like townhouses or something. And they couldn't find a developer that would build them, which I think is a little disingenuous, but who knows,
Well, the other thing is, they say that there's no one who will buy a townhouse. And I find that hard to believe too. I mean, townhouses I lived in one for a short time, and it was really wonderful. You don't have to take care of your lawn. You don't have, usually there's everyone's lawns are taken care of at the same time. You don't have, there's just a lot of nice things about not having a huge amount of property around you, and also having the shared walls. So I wonder how they can say, well, the developer decided that nobody would buy them. Based on what? I mean, do we have a lot of them here that are sitting empty that they can turn around and say nobody wants them?
We don't really know the truth about what went on there. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. The developer could even have known from the beginning that they might not stick with that idea and come back for a change. It's hard to tell.
Well, that's disheartening, because that means that if that is something that they might have done, then our planning and zoning board has to be careful that they're not, getting the wool pulled over their eyes on something.
Well, like I was thinking about that last night. When you read these planned development projects, supposedly, a developer comes in and they've got this low residential density zoning on the property. And I'm not sure exactly. I think it's like 9,000 square feet for a house or something. That the property has to be that large. And then they come in and they want to start increasing their densities so that they can, up the amount of money that they can make on that piece of property. And so according to the planned development project, if they come in with a design that is supposedly superior to the standard thing that they would be required to do under their current zoning, then they're granted this PDP, which allows them to increase their densities. And, it's really interesting. They'll come in with a list this long of all the waivers they're asking for. And then there's a little list about this long of all the things that they're providing. And sometimes it seems like there ought to be a little more like balance, weighing. Okay, how does, do these amount of waivers that you're asking for really justify? Are they justified by these extra things that you're doing?
Yeah, and that's where the planning and zoning board members become more and more important. The fact that they're starting to ask more questions is what Juanita was talking about. They're going in the right direction, and I just say more power to them. And we got onto this subject, I think, by talking about how the voting went, and that it was split like 4-3. But that reminds me that there was another recent vote, this time in the city commission, for the Lake Alta project, and that vote was 3-2 in opposition to the project. They turned the project down.
Unprecedented.
Well, it was a really welcome decision as far as I'm concerned. But I think the most important thing to be said about that right now is that people came out and spoke. The citizens expressed all kinds of opinions about it. And almost most of the commissioners said something about how much they enjoyed the comments from the people who lived in that area. So it says, people, your voice counts. Come out and speak about things when you're concerned about something.
That petition that they brought with them the last time, the neighborhood spokespeople were coming regularly to the meetings themselves. But when they came with a list of, what was it, something like 17 to 24 people that actually signed that petition saying that they did not want that project in the neighborhood, I feel like that really lent a lot of strength to, I mean, not everyone can come to a meeting, but I think they went door to door, didn't they?
I think they said they had 25 people from the neighborhood, and then they had a total of 41. So they got some additional people that didn't live in the neighborhood to sign them as well. So they had actually 41.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Well, and I think we need to call out and thank our mayor, Jack Hilligoss, and Keith Thompson and Daniel Williams. I think Daniel actually went over to the community and went and talked to some of the neighbors himself, which I thought that should be commended as well, because, how else do you know what people think unless you go there and talk to some of them? So
maybe they should do that more often.
Yeah, I think so. And, they got to do some of their own research, to see,
Yeah. I think that before we get off of this subject, it's important to point out that it's not quite over yet, because we still have that lake is still under the ownership now of the CRA, where it was transferred from the city when they thought they were going to give it away to the developer. So we have to make sure that that lake gets back in the city hands so that they can clean it up or improve it a little bit, which they've said they might do. And then I guess there is also the possibility that we need to look out for, that developer might come back with yet another idea before he resorts to doing the 6 lots that he is currently authorized to do. So it's just something for us to keep our eye out for.
Yeah.
Well, and also we need to be careful that when we use terms like CRA, that we let people know that's the Community Redevelopment Agency.
Yeah.
That the property, the city park property, was transferred from the city public land to the CRA, or the Community Redevelopment Agency. So now we need to ask to have the CRA retransfer it back to the city and enshrine that is public property, public park, not to be touched for other purposes.
Right.
The chairperson of the CRA is Robin Gibson, right? Am I right on that?
Yes.
You might be right. Yes, you
Yes,
are.
he is.
And he's very, very, he was very intense about wanting that Alta project to go through. So I really hope that he will now, come to his senses about that, that the neighborhood is not going to like them to do anything with that park besides keep it the park. I hope that happens.
Well, I've been listening to a lot of national programs and discussions about density, like urban density, and the idea that if you concentrate population in your urban areas, but that you somehow that's more efficient than allowing this kind of sprawl. The problem in our town is we're getting concentration of sprawl, and then they want to do infill, dense infill as well. And so, I do believe that there are places in Lake Wales that are amenable to small, compact, infill type projects.
Yeah.
It wasn't a well thought out project. It really wasn't. And they started with something that was like, just stuck out at you. A park. We're giving it away. I mean, that was not a good way to start an infill.
Well, we would, but I mean, we can feel good about the fact that we helped shepherd it along to get where it is today. So we can feel a little bit celebratory, can't we?
Yeah, I think we need to have a party, some kind of a party to celebrate it. Maybe we'll talk to some of the people over there and see about having a little happy hour or picnic or something out at Lake Alta Park as a, sort of a celebratory thing.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll put in a champagne.
I'll come.
Yeah, I will too. I will.
Sounds good.
What else do we have to talk about today? I think we were talking, I guess there's a article came out, was it today or yesterday, from the lakewalesnews.net, our friend Robert, about the fact that our city manager is looking for a job elsewhere. So,
yes. And nobody, I guess can't look into his mind. We don't know what all his reasons might be, but we have learned that he's going through that vetting group. I forget the exact name of it, that helps city managers find jobs. It's a long process. So he may have started with them like 6 months ago. So this isn't a recent decision, probably on his part. It's something that he's been thinking about for a while. And who knows what it means.
We've lost a lot of people in the last year, haven't we? A lot of personnel over there at the city.
Well, we have. We've lost. There was an assistant manager that he hired and fired within 2 months. There was the Brian Herman, the growth management director, who was only there for about 2 months before he was dismissed. We have Autumn Coachella, who has left.
Resigned. She's still there as a consultant, though.
Yes, she's there as a consultant.
Wasn't there a woman in there?
There was that strange thing that went on with Dorothy Abbott, the finance director. Do you remember a couple of years, or maybe a year and a half ago, when she resigned and went to a job elsewhere? and they supposedly hired this new person to take her job. And then a week or two later, they were hiring her back as a consultant to do some of the work that she had previously done there. And then a month or two later, she was hired back into the job. We don't know what happened to that person that was hired to replace her. It was a strange thing. And the reason that's stuck with me is I can't help but think about the importance for citizens of more transparency from the city about this kind of thing. They only told us, a few little bits of it, but we never told her what was going on. That was something that, of course, was managed by Slayton. And then there was that recent incident with the police chief where he fired him and then hired him back.
We had a young horticulturalist, and I forget his name, that was hired. And he came as a horticulturalist to work in the parks department. And then not long after he was there, they advanced him to be over all the parks. And I just don't think he was, number one, prepared for that. Number two, he had no one there at the city to really talk to or mentor him. And it wasn't too long, I think he got overwhelmed and he left. And now we have a new gentleman. I should know his name. I've met him. He's a really nice guy. But we have a new director of horticulture at the Harps that I'm really excited about. I think he looks very promising. So I'm hoping that he will stay with us,
Yeah. And the one person we forgot to mention was the departure of Mark Bennett somewhere in all this process, which was kind of sudden and unexpected also. So there's been a history of personnel stuff there. And you can even juxtapose this against the fact that thing with the BizLink and the CRA coordinator, Starling, all that stuff where the contracts with those organizations are questionable, and the accountability, that there was apparently no adequate accountability established for those two groups
in the contract. Yeah.
And so, I mean, all of this, I don't know what Mr. Slayton's reasons for leaving are, whether he just wants to better himself somewhere, what it may be, but it all brings to mind the importance of accountability and what seems to be the lack of it in the city, and the need for transparency, that we don't have what I would call adequate transparency in the city. And that reminds me of one other little thing, if I may add this. You may remember about a month ago that Robin Gibson said something about he had information about the city employees not treating the public right, something like that. And then one of the other commissioners agreed with him about that. He gave no details. I didn't know what he meant by that and why he was particularly bringing it up there. It's unusual for him to bring up personnel stuff like that. So how that relates to James Slayton, I don't know, but I think it probably does, because he's in charge of all the personnel. So,
well, I wonder what the work environment is like there. When you're with a lot of people, it seems like you have to ask a question: what's it like to work for the city? I mean.
Well, I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here, okay? Because because of my husband's work, particularly, it's been a very difficult hiring environment over the last few years.
mm-hmm.
And so, to be fair, we're not going to have that kind of level of transparency over internal personnel problems. And I'm not sure that is really appropriate for us to know all the details of what goes on, because some of that is frankly personnel. It's not for public. What we need to look at, I think, is results. we need to see when we look at, what's going on, whether we think that person, whoever's holding that job, is performing the job that they're supposed to perform. And then the buck sort of stops with the city manager. They're responsible for making sure that happens in a timely and appropriate manner.
I'll tell you one thing they did do really well, and that was the recreation center. I mean, they took that over. They got it running very quickly. And I was just looking, I saw a sign at the end of my street here that they're doing some kind of a parent date night over there where you can drop children up at 6, between 6 and 9. And it's a very small fee. It's $15 for the first child and I think $8 for the other ones. And the parents can go out and have babysitter during that time. And the kids are actually enjoying themselves, playing games and doing art projects and stuff. That's a great thing. They also have like paint and sip. They've done a lot of good things over there. And that was for him that's got started. With the help of staff, of course.
So while you guys are both out of town recently, I went to a line dancing class over there one day. Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I haven't been able to go back because it's always on a Tuesday at 12:15. And I can't always go, but they've got some interesting things going on there.
Yeah, well, this is the kind of thing that I, I'm glad to see in our community. It's like these are the joyful things that make a community worthwhile. And so I don't want to make it seem like that. And even with the idea of James going to another job, there are some things I feel like James has done a good job with.
Oh, yeah.
So, there's always the chance that, you could get somebody better than someone and they leave, or you could get someone much worse, So, it is what it is. And, if he finds a good job, all the more power to him. And, I think I'm concerned that we have a good city manager for Lake Wales,
what do you think about the squeeze, lady? Because I understand that I think I wrote it down here, May 16th, I believe. The squeeze is going to start here. Weekdays from 11 to 2. This little jitney is going to go around certain streets downtown and give people transportation so that if they have to park far away, they can just jump on this little 8-seater. Was it 8 or 6?
And go to town?
And go through the town, yeah. And which is really nice since, one of those streets is pretty messed up right now. But I think it's going to continue even when the streets are not messed up. And that's something that was instituted recently.
Mm-hmm. So, that is cool. That is cool.
Apparently it works in Lakeland.
Huh?
Apparently they did it in Lakeland with a lot of success.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so our election was, April 2nd, and we now have one new city commissioner, Carol Gillespie, who's going to be seated on May 7th. I guess we had an extra Tuesday, so there was no workshop today, and then we're not having a city commission next week, but we will have it resuming the 1st of May.
Yes, May 7th is the next commission meeting, which means that the Friday before that, the agenda will come out. We expect on that agenda to be this new PDP ordinance and these impact fee matters and a couple of development matters that were on last night's P&Z agenda, and who knows what else might be on there. And we need to keep our eye out for the next CRA meeting, a Community Redevelopment Agency, Catherine, and see if Lake Alta shows up on that agenda. Lots of things to look for.
And, on this issue of these ordinances that deal with impact fees, I think this is really, really important. And just to close it up, the discussion will kind of loop back around to the Planning and Zoning Board. The discussion was whether, the credit, these reductions in credits and impact fees. Impact fees are there for various reasons, like for roads or for parks or for
schools,
infrastructure or schools or whatever they are, to basically help the community cope with the impact of a new development when it comes in, because there's more people on the road, there's more people using the schools, more people needing garbage services. And so, these are the kind of things that these impact fees pay for. And so I think that we need to come back maybe with a little more structured discussion of the impact fee ordinances and what those can mean for the community.
Yeah, I think what the crux of what they were dealing with last night, and which always bothers me when I think about these things, is we don't have a context in which to put what these impact fees mean. They're being asked to vote on this impact fee thing when they don't know what's it going to mean 2 years from now and 5 years from now and 10 years now. Are these decisions, does this mean there's going to be adequate impact fees in the future, or does it not? Nobody gives them financial information and projections to put their decision making into context. And that was what they were struggling with last night.
Yeah, because they were saying that, the staff was saying, well, more people will move in and there'll be more jobs and they'll be spending more money, in the area, and that will make up for it. But we don't really know if that's really true. You need some kind, you need to be able to see what will it cost in the future for these services. And if we're not going to, how are we formulating the impact fee to begin with? And then if we take some of that away, how is that going to affect those services in the future?
I'm not confident that we're collecting enough in impact fees to begin with. And then you start just sort of willy-nilly, giving people credits and taking them away. And I'm afraid that what we're doing is kicking the can down the road for future taxpayers and future city commissioners to have to tangle with issues that, it's easier in the current to just cut taxes. They make everybody happy. But in the future is when it starts to come to bear on you.
Well, even in the present, we have places here, there are roads that are badly out of shape right here in downtown area, right here where I live here on Tillman, and in other places in the city. We also have, we just have a lot of concerns about the parks and how they're being maintained. And so got to weigh that in there also. It's always just the future. It's right now.
It is true. It is very true.
Yep.
Anybody else got something you want to say? Well, I'm excited about hopefully being there when Carol is seated as our new city commissioner, and I guess Daniel Williams will be back with us, and so it's going to be exciting to see how we go forward, right?
We're starting into a little bit new period now, a little different.
I'm drinking water today.
Different dynamics. Me too.
Well, I will buy a bottle of champagne for Lake Alta when we have that party. And I'll buy another one. Maybe we can have a glass right outside of the city hall when Carol, her installation, right?
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Y'all have a great afternoon. See you soon.